Okay, wow. Feel a little feedback there or something. I don't have this on.
I can hear you from that, but
Yeah.
it's echoing.
No, this one's not on. All right. Anyway, so here we are. So welcome back, you all of the diehards. Plus we have a new guest with us today. What was your name again? Rebecca. Okay, welcome Rebecca, who's auditing the class today for so an extra credit or something, I don't know. Anyway, I've been looking forward to this for 2 weeks because this is your session. It's not really mine, and we're gonna hear your work, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. What we got, I got 6 submissions. Well, it turns into 7 because Don said he brought his today, and so I'll fit him in at a certain point. And I'm going to go by how long they are. I'll take the longest one first, and then we'll go from there and end up with the shortest one at the end. So that no favoritism. It's not alphabetical. It's not, who I like better than the others or which pieces were. And they were all really good. I was quite pleased with them. And I'm obviously not going to grade them or anything like that, but I could see where, which exercise you picked for the most part, and that I could see how they were fairly crisply written. There weren't a lot of adverbs, and so a lot of stuff that we talked about. The bad stuff did not appear, and some of the good stuff did appear. So I think that's makes me feel good anyway. I hope it means that you all have learned a few things and taken some stuff away. So like I said, we'll start with the longest one, which happens to be Carol Ingram. So if you wouldn't mind coming up and reading your piece.
First of all, I didn't follow directions. I didn't double space. I didn't editorialize. However, it's hard to have, with spell check, to not spell everything right.
No, it doesn't. You have to be very careful with spell check.
Okay. Oh, please. They're recording. Oh, no. Horror in the hybrids. Most people don't know the joys of living in the hybrid apartments at River Landing. However, danger lurks in the hidden recesses of the building. I'm talking about the elevators. They look so innocent. Push a button, hear the cube ascending, watch the doors glide open, and then they trap you. I've had the pleasure of being in the elevator when it closes and traps you for what seems like an eternity. My elevator partner, from now on known as EP, claims we were in there for 2 hours. I'm not saying she's wrong, but panic changes the perception of time. First, you pick up the phone they conveniently place in the elevator just for situations like this. They really want you to have faith in the machine. The phone is answered. Your call will be answered in the order in which it was received. You start to wonder just how many others are stuck in this particular brand of elevators. Next, you pound on the walls and doors, hoping someone will hear you. No one answers. How could everyone be out? All at once, you realize that you have your cell phone in your pocket and try to call someone, anyone. The realization hits you. There is no cell phone reception in the elevator, but you can text. Everyone you ever heard of gets a text from you. When you are finally released from the prison you were in, you get calls from people in faraway cities because the text went out in a rush when you were released. Now the panic starts to set in. The EP looks around and tells you there's no release panel in the ceiling. Even if there were, both of you are too short to reach the 9-foot height. The power of prayer sets in about now and your prayers are answered. The firemen arrive. I hope they are not too disappointed because there is not a fire. Instead, it is 2 women in a state of panic and treat the firemen like the rescuing heroes they are. Since that time, the elevators in my building have gone out 15 times. And yes, we are all counting. Now, I do know what it means to be stuck in an elevator. Now I know what to do in case of being stuck in an elevator. I get on my phone and go to YouTube. The best advice is to remain calm, like that is going to happen. Positive thinking is also helpful. Other advice is to make yourself comfortable and get some sleep because you are probably tired from all the energy you have used trying to get out. What you don't want to do is read about people who have perished in elevators, which is also on YouTube, I might add.
Oh, you,
Thank you, thank you.
very good. What did you like about that? Funny? Yeah. Relatable? I like the title too, and the horror in the hybrids. And I like the alliteration of it as well. Okay. That's supposed to be blank, so as not to detract from what we're looking at here. Next one is Caroline Mcguinn with her story called The Come Downs.
It was my first plane trip. All was magic. The bustle at the terminal, the energy and noise at takeoff, the climb into the wild blue yonder as I watched the houses get tinier and tinier, and yummy clouds all around me. Too soon, however, this 4-year-old's enchantment became whines, fidgets, and how much longer till we get there? My boredom was relieved when we landed in Miami. The plane went down and my breakfast came up. Yuck, what a come down. It was 1943 and my family was en route from our home in High Point to join my father, who held a wartime job in Puerto Rico. After a second stop in Cuba and another upheaval, we arrived in San Juan. Our hotel, the brand new Hotel Normandy, was modeled after a French luxury ship of the same name. It had a rounded bow with long curved balconies at each upper level. Our apartment was on the 7th deck. I don't remember who was supposed to look after me while my parents supervised the luggage transport, but I was able to wander out onto the balcony. I heard shouts and cheers from nearby. I climbed over the balcony rail and held onto it with one hand so I could lean out and watch the baseball game in the park next door. I also spied my little brother in the parking lot, draped over my father's shoulder, asleep. His white blonde hair shone like a beacon among the throng of dark-haired natives. I yelled, but no one heard me. Then I saw my mother there too, looking up my way. I waved to her, but instead of waving back, she grabbed my father's arm and pointed at me. Daddy shoved my brother into the luggage handler's arms and raced my mother to the hotel. Mother had a head start, but I couldn't see who won. I turned back to the ball game. A few minutes later, someone took hold of my extended arm with an iron grip and lifted me by both arms back over the rail. I turned to face my father. He looked as shocked as I felt. Mother pulled me into her arms and held me tight, hiccuping and crying. I wiggled loose. "What's wrong?" I demanded. "You scared me." Both were out of breath and couldn't speak for a few moments. When my father explained, I was indignant. "I'm no dummy. I wouldn't turn loose." We moved that same day into a quickly refurbished beauty parlor on the ground floor. Our new apartment had beds in the living room and 7 big sinks spread out along the kitchen wall. It was another come down from on high.
That's the hotel. So you can imagine little Caroline hanging off one of those balconies. Oh, gracious. What did you all like about that one? Well, okay, a great many things, I'm sure.
I think there are lots of things. You wanted to catch your breath, and I wanted to be right there and say, "Don't stop." How could I? So I felt like I was in the story. And thinking, identifying with the mother, not with you. I did too.
Yes.
I
exactly what was going on. Of this little girl in the plane and upchucking and, you know, changing planes and then hanging out that balcony, because I hate heights. And I'm like, oh. So,
Yeah, it was. It was a good description of what was going on. I thought this one and Horror in the Hybrids, they both had good titles and good first sentences as well. Most people don't know the joys of living in the hybrid apartments at River Landing. Okay, well, that kind of grabs you. It was my first plane trip. All right, obvious setup, which is good. Also, the use of good use of short sentences and good first lines in the paragraphs. You know, we talked about having many of the paragraphs should have good first lines that kind of draw you into the paragraph, and then the rest of the paragraph explains what's going on. And then you used bookends. The title is actually one end of the bookend, and then at the end it was the last come down or final come down or whatever it was you said at the end. So that was a good use of that technique as well. Let's see. I think Maxine is next, so we will let her come up and read hers.
My writing was concerning or about a summer with Grandma and Grandpa. The summer vacation will soon be on the way. The last semester of my high school is ending with success, having good grades and preparing for a visit with my grandparents. They live in a small farming town. There were 3 older children who were married with children living with them. The younger children were the ages of my sister and me. The older aunts and uncles treated us like princesses. We were old enough to help them with we were not old enough to help them with their farm chores. We would get up early in the morning smelling breakfast that my grandmother was cooking, cooking in the morning, smelling breakfast that my grandmother was cooking, getting dressed and running to the kitchen. The sausage with gravy and grits or rice, biscuits, milk and coffee. Sometimes we have homemade molasses with fatback meat. Sometimes we would have other items on the menu also. At mealtime, there could be as many as 10 people sitting at a large oval table and a small one for the smaller children while eating, talking, and laughing. The fun was beginning for the children who played in the fields while their older aunts and uncles and cousins worked crops. They would use hoes to get the weeds from between the plants so that they would grow stronger and healthier. While they were working, they were singing songs that we would join in singing. The younger children would play in the front yard while workers in the fields did their back-breaking work. The youngest aunt was in elementary school. She would teach the younger children beginning to learn to read, write, and numbers. We loved the way she made the experience such a learning fun. We were too young to understand that the older uncles and aunts in my family at that time could not attend, well, the older uncles could not attend the elementary school after 3rd grade. The farm work had to get done.
Okay. Good. What did you like about that one?
I like the family, the atmosphere, the love. It was positive. There was heartbreaking things, but it was we shared things that I didn't know that was interesting, and how the aunts would teach the younger children and a little bit about that. That was fascinating.
Yeah. Lots going on, a lot of imagery there, good imagery.
What I liked was one of the
Yeah, huge table.
Well, I think it would have been just a little better if he had brought all that breakfast food here so we could have shared it.
Yeah. Carol says she wishes that Maxine had brought all the breakfast food here with her today.
It sounds good.
A lot of cooking really good. Yeah. My grandmother. Made me think of my own grandparents.
Uh, And there was good music kind of in the way that the words flowed. I think that was really nice. Okay, let's see. Don is up next, and I have no idea what he's going to do.
I just followed instructions. And my story is based off this picture of the car with the young lady standing there with the suitcase. I called it whirlwind.
Called it what?
Whirlwind.
Okay.
Let me get reading glasses. After driving late into the evening, then visiting with the family, I'm sound asleep when I hear banging on my bedroom door. Mom is doing the banging with her mom's voice. Philip, get up. You have to take your sister Margarita to the bus stop, and you only have an hour. Then I remember that Margarita, or Margaret as she's known outside of the house, is off to college this morning. Sometimes being the oldest in the family is hard. The younger brothers and sister have grown while I've been away. Margaret has worked hard and gotten good grades, and she's earned a scholarship to the Teachers College in Las Vegas, New Mexico. This morning is the beginning of her journey, and I have to get Margaret to the bus stop. My eyes open wide. The exhaustion from yesterday and the past week working in the mine is gone. Shave, brush my teeth, and shower, get dressed, and I'm downstairs. Kissing Mom on the cheek with a, "Good morning, Mom." Gulp some coffee that was handed to me. "Where's Margarita?" "Mom, she's in her room finishing getting ready. Her suitcase is by the door." I rush out of the house, grabbing the suitcase on my way to the car. I've just bought it, a 1959 Chevy Impala convertible. It's loaded with everything under the sun, even the big V8 engine. When in high school, I took welding classes, and after graduation, I went to work at the open pit mine in eastern Arizona as a welder. That was in 1955. Now 4 years later, and I'm home and taking Margarita to the bus stop so she can start her adult life.
I like that. That's totally different than what I had thought of on that story. That's great.
Yeah, that is interesting. Those prompts can take you in any direction, you know. You really don't know. Okay. Anybody else have any other comments about Don's? Good. Well, thank you, Don. Next up is Kathy.
I titled this Age, not the issue. My mother always claimed I learned to read at age 3. I do remember reading Dick and Jane in the first grade, the standard text at the time. In second grade, we must have had some sort of a chart of what we read, and I wanted to be at the top. We were required to read and do a verbal report to the teacher. Mrs. W. would then quiz us about the story. One of my favorite series then was about the adventures of Flicka, Dicka, and Ricka, triplets from Sweden. The stories were on one page, and opposite were pictures of the action. After giving my report, Mrs. W. asked questions which I could not answer. I was telling the story by the picture in the book and not the text. It did not take me long to learn to really read. I took off running and regularly had a book in my hands. Among my favorites were the Oz books, Raggedy Ann and Andy, the Bobbsey Twins, quickly moving to Tarzan and Nancy Drew. I have to thank Mrs. W. for setting me on the path to reading, a lifelong pleasure. So no, I was not reading at age 3, but I have not stopped since. Reading history, mystery, romance, nonfiction, and especially early English history.
Thank you. So that was you chose 2A, childhood experience. Very nice. Is that, oh, and your formatting was good too, in addition to being a good and interesting story. What does anybody have to say about Kathy's story?
It was very personal. You got to know her by what she liked to read and how she learned to read it.
Yeah, very personal. Right. I'm repeating because I'm not sure that you can be heard. My friend Flicka jumps to mind. Is that what those stories were?
Flicka, Dicka, and Ricka were triplets, and the story was written by a Swedish author. And actually, if you go online, you can order them from Amazon.
Okay, there's a plug for Flicka, Dicka, and Ricka.
There was also a series about 3 little Swedish boys who were triplets, the same author.
Oh,
Probably,
well, good.
I didn't look that far,
Okay.
but I know Flicka, Dicka, and Ricka. I can just picture those little blonde girls all dressed alike.
That's wonderful. Okay, next up is Sam.
Mine is short and not very creative, but anyway, here it is. Titled, What If? I was goofing off in the hall one day of my senior year of high school when Mr. Jones, the principal, stopped me and asked where I was going to college. I laughed at him because college was for doctors and lawyers' kids. He took me by my arm and escorted me to his office, sat me down, and talked to me about going to college. Again, I sort of laughed, but he got my attention. Several years ago, my sister told me that Mr. Jones had driven out to our farm in the country to talk to my parents about me going to college. With little family encouragement, a small scholarship, and working in the college mess hall and dairy, and summer jobs, I made it through. Of course, graduate school was a totally different story. Over the years, I have occasionally thought, what if Mr. Jones had not collared me that day I was goofing off in the hall in my senior year of high school? So, that's it.
Comments?
I'll tell you what I liked about it. One, story was interesting. What it said to me was influence we can have in children's lives if we see something and then spoke to them and encourage them. And I like that. I like that he encouraged you and you, intellectually you might have said no, but emotionally it was a spark.
Yeah, I had never thought it quite like that, but if he hadn't,
He'd probably be pumping gas. And we wouldn't be here because we wouldn't be.
That's right. Well, it's interesting too that both of you had Mr. Jones, you had Mrs. W to thank for putting you on the right track. What?
I couldn't remember all of her last name.
That's all right. I think back on some of the teachers I had too, and I wish I could go back and thank them, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. And so whether I remember their whole names or not, it's too bad. But
The way it started with the what if, I thought that was.
yeah, good title. And it was crisp, and your formatting was good also. So, and a good opening line. Kathy's was a good opening line too. So, all right. And finally, we have Carol.
Surprise, surprise. The title of mine is Rules. It was a dark and stormy night. I'm not supposed to start that way. However, I've always been somewhat of a rule breaker. So, what to do if breaking a rule initially got me into this dilemma? House rule number 1, be sure the back door is secure so Charlie, our dog, doesn't push through the door and escape again. Rule number 2, if rule number 1 is broken, then the guilty party must find Charlie. Hence, here I am, 10 p.m., with a storm approaching, looking for Charlie, who is totally fearful of storms. Did I mention it was a dark and stormy night?
Thank
We're waiting for the next line to come. The next rule.
you. Okay, good title, good opening line. Good use of bookends. So, and crisp. Oh, and formatting was good. Well, tell you what, did you all enjoy those?
Yes.
Doing that? Yeah, I congratulate you.
You forgot something.
I forgot what?
You didn't ask me to comment on Don's story.
Oh, well, please comment on Don's story.
Yeah. Gee whiz. Okay. I liked Don's story. I liked, there was a family flavor and a hominess with it. I liked that he obviously was so in love with cars. When he looked at that, it wasn't the sister, it was the car. I kept waiting for the convertible to top to be down, and you were gonna say something about the rain, but that didn't work there that well. So I thought it was charming and delightful. Thank you.
Good.
And same with yours, with breaking the rules, I thought, oh, see, you had told me you had looked at the other picture, and when you broke the rules, I thought, where are we going with this? And then it came, and I enjoyed it. But what I like about all the stories is, and everyone did the same thing, you stop and I'm thinking, okay, now what goes on after this? What am I gonna do? He got to graduate school, she learned to read, and, you know, and that's a fun thing. What happened to Charlie? Did you find Charlie? And we know that, I'm not getting on an elevator
Forget us for visiting you.
On the 3rd floor, especially if there's a water shortage in High Point and you have to carry your water out.
Oh.
Oh, it was fun.
Well, I'm not taking any kids to Puerto Rico where they can get off on the balcony.
The hotel sounded nice and important, brand new. That was.
The year before, yeah.
Is it still there, or do you know?
It reminded me of being a young boy when I'd go visit the farm.
Yes.
Well, listen, that's great. I really appreciate you all doing that, and I hope that it's has been instructive as well as fun, and has given you some additional confidence in your skills and you know, identity, if you will, as writers. Because, like I said, we said at the very beginning, you're all writers. You've all been writing all your lives. So, thank you for doing that. Now, we have a lot of time, and I have one other thing I might want to get into, but are there any, let's do a little Q&A. Does anybody have any questions about the exercises or the material that was handed out on the, sort of the things to watch for when you're editing and so on and so forth? And by the way, I do have, I think I mentioned it before, the FURL Creative Writing Contest that's coming up, and I've got some guidelines over there you can pick up on the way out. So, Maxine.
Okay, I have a comment. Now, the writing was okay. I thought I had words allows me now to go back and do some things.
Yes, that's a good point. Maxine says reading it aloud gives her a whole different perspective on the work, and some ideas about other refinements that she might want to make. And that's one thing I didn't actually mention, I don't think, in the previous sessions. Take your work and read it aloud. Now, if you're writing a novel, you probably aren't going to do that, but you might read certain parts of it, especially the dialogue. Does the dialogue ring true? And so forth. So that's a great point, and I thank you for bringing that up. Rebecca, was it?
Yes, sir. What type of exercise was it? Was it for essay or memoir essay
One of,
that they were reading?
let me give you a copy of that. Yeah, it was a set of optional exercises that we had. Anybody else?
I found reading it aloud makes a big difference, and not just in here, you just hear it differently. And even in a long book,
Mm-hmm.
it tells you things. One of the things I learned when writing this was I didn't know how to pronounce luxury. We all know it had a G in it.
Luxury? I'm sorry, you said we didn't know it had a D in it? A G?
Luxury, she didn't pronounce it.
I was pronouncing it with a G, and I looked up how to pronounce it, and then when you get the phonetic, it's got a G in it.
Not a G in it. It's funny. Pronunciation is when you start writing, you run into words that you don't use every day sometimes. And a story when I was 15, 17, whatever, years old, we were doing something in our high school. It was called Senior Class Night. And we had all these skits and stuff that we were doing to make fun of the teachers in the school and whatnot. And I used the word epitome, but I had never heard it pronounced. It's E-P-I-T-O-M-E, so I boldly pronounced it epitome. And nobody called me on it. I guess maybe they didn't know either, I don't know. But you would have thought my English teacher, who was up there tape recording this whole thing, would have mentioned it to me, but she was a nice lady. And I wish I could go back and thank her too. She was a great influence. Any other questions?
I liked your guidelines on finding a quiet place and keeping distractions out of the way. I have a desk, which has usually got junk on it, but when I went down to write this, I cleared it off. I didn't put any music on, and it all just flowed out then, because I'd thought about it. And of course, it was a personal story for me, so it wasn't like I was creating something.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the scene set, I thought was very valuable for me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, getting a nice quiet place to start with is really key, really important. Carol.
I started out just recording what I was talking, and I talked my story to myself, and then I sat down and listened to it and put it out there.
Excellent. Carol said she started out by talking the story before she actually sat down to write it. Now, did you record it into a machine or on your phone? Yeah, which is a specific thing that was one of the suggestions that we talked about in one or two of the earlier meetings.
I couldn't do it with the book, but you're right. It was a really good way for me to hear what I was going to put down.
Yeah, I tell everybody that, because sometimes you just sit down for the blank screen or a blank piece of paper and I'm lost. I can't do anything. Shut your eyes and talk. Anybody else? Well, since we called it Q&A, but we've gotten into some critiques of the course. If anybody has any other comments they'd like to make at this point, that'd be fine. Otherwise, I'll be happy to get them, in my box or by email or whatever. Whatever you thought, plus positive or negative, either way. So, okay, we've got some time. I want to go through one more thing, which I think you'll find interesting. I'm not sure how exactly practical it will be, but it was something that really fascinated me when I first heard about it. And let me turn this off. Okay. And it's called The Writer's Journey. Anybody ever heard of this? It's really, it says up here, there's simple ideas. All stories consist of a few common structural elements found universally in myths, fairy tales, dreams, and movies. They're known collectively as the hero's journey. And that's from the introduction to this book. And it's really interesting because once you've gone through these, you'll see Wizard of Oz or the Harrison Ford movies, the Indiana Jones, all that stuff. All these movies follow pretty much the same storyline. Obviously there's variations, but this goes all the way back to stories that were written by the Greeks, I guess. And this guy, Christopher Vogler, has taken that and studied it and broken it down into two sections. The first one is called the Archetypes. These are the kind of characters that you find in these stories. And then after that, it's the stages of the journey that the main character or characters goes through. And I'm just going to kind of go through these, basically reading them without much comment, because I think they speak for themselves. So the archetypes, you have the hero. Now the hero is somebody who's willing to sacrifice his own needs on behalf of others, okay? And you just find that. That would be the protagonist probably. Then there's the mentor character. Maybe there's more than one. These are the people who teach and protect the heroes and give them gifts. Now gifts could be any kind of gifts, advice, it could be money, it could be whatever the hero might need at that particular time. The threshold guardian, a menacing face to the hero, but if understood, they can be overcome. So the hero has got to figure out, well, what's really motivating so-and-so? How can I get what I need by dealing with this person? Then there's the herald, a force that brings a new challenge to the hero. Shapeshifter, okay, these are characters who change constantly from the hero's point of view. Oh, I thought he was this, but now he's turning into this. My gosh, I don't understand this character. And so I don't trust him. I better be wary. And then there's the shadow, representing the dark side. An ally, somebody who travels with the hero through the journey, serving a variety of functions. It could be Igor, the hunchbacked lab technician, or it could be any kind of a number two, sidekick. And there may be more than one, but typically you'll find that there's one. And then the trickster, whoever this is, embodies the energies of mischief and desire for change. So these are certainly not an exhaustive list of the characters that you find in a story, but certainly representative. And a really good story will probably have a good mix of these kind of people.
Explain the threshold guardian, or maybe give an example. I'm not getting that.
Well, let's see. Trying to think of a story where, can anybody think of what that might be? Think threshold guardian. Who would that be? Think of a story where you can identify who the threshold guardian is. Say the Wizard of Oz, who would that be? One of the witches, a Wicked Witch of the West or somebody, or somebody like that? In the Indiana Jones movies.
Sherlock Holmes movies where the guy is nemesis all the time.
Moriarty?
Yeah.
Well, he would probably be the one who is the shadow, who represents the energy of the dark side.
Well, what about if Moriarty was at his henchmen, his workers?
Yeah, Moriarty's helpers, sure.
Helpers.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Google it. Then the next is the stages of the journey. And this is pretty interesting. The Vogler has identified 12 stages that you typically find in the hero's journey. First of all, he starts off, we're in the ordinary world, okay? The hero is seen in his or her everyday life. So there's Dorothy at home in Kansas going about her business until the storm comes. Then the call to adventure, the initiating incident of the story. In her case, she didn't have much choice. The tornado came, and all of a sudden there she was in this strange land. In my novel, The Accidental Spurt, there's this guy that's been downsized out of his job, and he's looking for work, and he gets this consulting job, and he finds out that what they really want him to do is go undercover to determine what's going on with some strange happenings in this company, and he doesn't really want to do it. So he objects, and finally he's talked into it because he thinks it might be interesting, and also he needs the money. So he finally does it, but he ends up being a fish out of water. And the fish out of water concept is fairly common in these kind of stories. So there you have the refusal of the call, which I just described. Then the meeting with the mentor. The hero gains the supplies, knowledge, and confidence needed to commence the adventure. So in the case of my protagonist in that book, he meets with several people who can tell him a lot about what's going on in the company, so he becomes a little more familiar with it. Now, I don't want to go into who all the characters are, but he does go through that process. Then he crosses the first threshold. He commits wholeheartedly to the adventure. And at some point, that happens, and you can tell that he's, all right, I'm in this now. Then tests allies and enemies. He explores the world, faces trial, makes friends and enemies. So these are the adventures that he or she has as they're going through the process of the story. Approach to the innermost cave. The hero nears the center of the story in the special world. So he's getting closer and closer to finding out what's really going on, what's really behind the curtain, so to speak, who's really pulling the puppet strings in terms of, as far as what's going on. Then there's the ordeal. He faces a challenge, experiences death and rebirth. Well, obviously not necessarily literally, but some kind of huge setback, and then he comes out of it. So that's the death and rebirth. Then the reward, he experiences the consequences of surviving death. The road back, the hero returns to the ordinary world or continues to an ultimate destination. But you see this all the time, just when you think the story is about over, somebody else emerges or some other element emerges that was hidden back there, or maybe we knew about it but forgot, and there's another challenge to the hero, and he's got to go through that just as you thought everything was going to work out just fine. So that's the final moment of death and rebirth, so that finally when he gets to re-enter the ordinary world, he's clean. And then there's the return with the elixir, which of course is figuratively speaking. He returns with something to improve the ordinary world, like he solved the crime, he put the bad guys in jail, whatever it is that makes the real world better, the ordinary world better. So if you're going to write a long story, and you're not going to find all these characters in a short story, obviously, because there's not enough room. But in a novel or a play or a movie, you watch the next time you encounter one of those and see if you don't see these elements and can identify, who's the trickster, who's the shapeshifter, who's the mentor, who's this, who's that. And I didn't print out a copy of this, but you can find it online. Just look up The Writer's Journey on Google and you can find it, I'm sure. Now we have a little bit more time, and I thought that if we had time and you don't have any other questions, so first I'll ask, are there any other questions or comments? I would like if Brian would be so kind to show you a video, which I think is on that thumb drive. And I don't need the slides anymore, so.
The county library?
Yeah. This is a poem I wrote that turned into a song and a play.
I'm learning more and more about how great it is every day. And, well, people say I should get out more, and they're probably right. But since this is such an important discovery that I've just made recently, it makes for a good story. And I'm going to bring it to you in a song. Well, if that's okay. But I'm going to need some help. If you'll please welcome my friend Paige. Where? There you are, Paige and Slim. Are you out there, Slim?
Yeah, right here.
Please welcome Paige and Slim to the stage, everybody. Now, they're going to help me help you help me. Now, what I mean by that is you guys are going to have to sing along, but don't worry, you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. It's a little something that goes like this. I found a place you gotta see down the valley about a mile from me. It's called the county library, and you can take home books for free. You can take home books for free down at the county library. Now see, that's when it's your guys' turn. Whenever Paige and Slim sing, I'm gonna have to ask you guys to sing along. We'll take it from the top so you guys can understand. I found a place you gotta see down the valley about a mile from me. It's called the county library, and you can take home books for free. Come on, you can take home books for free down at the county library. Not bad, not bad.
That's okay.
There's magazines and books galore on the shelves and on the floor. There's comfy chairs and a whole lot more, and you can smoke outside the door. There's books on tape and on CD down at the county library. There's books on tape and on CD down at the county library. Still a little rough around the edges, but you guys are getting it. Yeah. The ladies at the desk are nice, but mind your manners is my advice. Too much noise will sure suffice to throw you out like you got lice. So don't annoy the powers that be down at the county library. Sing along if you have lice. Don't annoy the powers that be down at the county library. You can check out all those books for free, but you gotta bring them back, you see. I forgot one time, so I stood in line, but all they said was,
That's a fine.
well, if it's fine with them, then it's fine with me. Down at the county library. Come on, if it's fine with them, then it's fine with me. Down at the county library. Paige, take one away.
Browse the internet, there's no fee. Look for a job or buy a TV. There's no telling what you'll see, but the racy sites are blocked. Same for the kids and the family down in the county library.
All the parents out there, if it's safe with the kids and the family down at the county library. Slim, take one away.
Out back they've got a bookmobile. It used to be a really big deal. They say it's lost its curb appeal, but the whole idea is so surreal. There's books on wheels, well, glory be! Down in the county library. There's books on wheels, well, glory be! Down in the county library.
They hired a man with a funny name. They lose a book, he gets the blame. I'd like to meet him, but he can't be found. Old Dewey Decimal's not around. He's hiding systematically down at the county library. He's hiding systematically down at the county Amazon.com, Target, Walmart, and even eBay. The only thing is,
You've gotta pay.
well, you don't need a literary shopping spree when you can get your books for free. Come on, down at the county library, yeah, down at the county library. Just the audience, down at the county library, down at the county library. All right, all right. Starbucks has its points, I guess, but it's sure not cheap and it's not the best. Hot water from the men's room free, it fills my coffee instantly. Well, that's good enough for me, down at the county library. Come on, well, that's good enough for me, down at the county library.
Hello?
Can't use my cell phone, that's
No, I'm just at the library.
the other folks, you
Actually,
know.
no, I think it's one of those libraries where you don't like have to be quiet. Yeah, no, they're pretty lax with that. So what are you up to? You doing
Can't
anything?
use my cell phone, that's no go. Disturbs the other folks, you know. So leave a message at the beep, and here's a promise that I might keep. Call you soon as I am free, when I get back from the library. Call you soon as I am free, when I get back from the library. Learn new words to impress your friends, they'll think you've gone to school again. So flaunt your tax-paid education, grammar and pronunciation.
It's pronunciation.
What did I say?
You said pronunciation.
Well, how do you pronounce that?
No, it's pronunciation.
Oh, okay, I got it. So flaunt your tax-paid education, grammar and pronunciation, like you got a PhD down at the county library. Come on, if you have a PhD, like you got a PhD down at the county library. So before I quit this mortal zoo, check out before I'm overdue. Now, don't picture me in death's embrace. Just leave a bookmark in my place, down at the county library, yeah, down at the county library. Audience again, come on. Down at the county library, down at the county library. Down at the county library, yeah, down at the county library. Down at the county library, yeah, down at the county library.
Okay. Just a little light note to end everything on. Any other questions? All right, well listen, I'm really pleased that you all came, and I appreciate it very much, and I hope you got something out of it that was worth your time. And if we ever do it again, you'll be invited to come back, but it'll be the same stuff. So but you'll be writing new stuff, so thanks a lot, and goodbye.